how do you immerse yourself into the period that you're writing about?
Okay, that's interesting, because if I'm doing a modern novel, it doesn't take any immersing whatsoever.
Yes.
But if I'm doing a lot of stuff, which I do historic, I'm listening to the music of the era. If I'm going down the road in a car, I'm listening, and I'm writing something about the 1940s, I'm listening to 1940s music.
Yeah.
I have got a slang dictionary that tells me 1940s slang, so that I understand. I can throw that in from time to time if I'm dealing with a teen character.
Yeah.
I have magazines beside me, and I go back and reference newspapers from that era. I actually look, I have a bookmark that if all of my In the President's Service series happen on specific days.
Yeah.
I will occasionally look back at, okay, what would be on the news that day? And so I'll look at this happened in 1942 on January 22nd, and I'll go back and that's the news of the day. You work that in.
Got it.
I will study who was in the cabinet, who was in the Senate. And yeah, you have to invent fictional characters in those places at times, but if you can find a way to interact with them, you do it. I have a 1940s World War II road atlas, so that I always know that I'm on the right road.
Yeah.
Literally, okay, you turn right here, and what highway are you on? And it'll get mentioned in the copy. So I want to be historically accurate. So I immerse myself very much in that, to the point of printing out a calendar I'm in 1944 right now, printing out a calendar and marking the dates as I go through that particular episode.
I love that. And to expound on that a little bit further, you listening to the music of the era and such, do you do that for, say it takes a month or so for you to write, do you do that for the entire month and just solely hone in on that?
No, just when I'm writing.
Okay, got it.
So that's an 8 to 5 thing.
Yeah.
And not that I write 8 to 5, because I write normally in the afternoons and evenings.
Yeah.
But when I'm writing, yeah. And then I close the door, and I'm back in the modern era.
Yeah.
I know some writers who actually take it as far as to dress the parts. I don't.
Yeah.
But when I'm doing it, my desk is littered with stuff from that era.
Yeah. With as much immersion as you do you ever find yourself having funny little moments where you might start talking in a 1940s dialect or in a 1940s tone, or start acting in that manner?
There are some slang words that you pick up and use, and everybody looks at you like you're crazy, because your character develops them and you say them. Yeah. So there's some things like that you do.
Yeah.
And so, but ultimately, when you're talking about that stuff, most of the people in the modern world are out of touch with it. So if you're talking about a certain kind of airplane or a certain kind of car.
Yeah.
The other thing you do is when you go back and find, our character, nobody's named Helen anymore. Our lead character's named Helen.
Yes.
Helen was a very common name back then. So you had to use Helen.
Yeah.
You couldn't use a modern name for that character. Same thing is true of you go back and you find out the niches. For instance, in the last book, I had to go back and find out what is the Seminole word for hello or goodbye.
Yeah.
And things like that. So you could actually use the real word in the text. So
yeah,
you're doing a lot of that. You're also finding out where the reservations, if you're dealing with Native Americans, were at that time, or where the bases were, and there were no Air Force bases because there was no Air Force until after World War II.
Yes.
And the one thing that I have done that is not historically accurate is I mentioned Camp David, which was not Camp David until after World War II.
Yeah.
But nobody would recognize it by the name Shangri-La. And so rather than try to explain it over and over again, I actually use Camp David. And I'll have 2 or 3 people who will write me from time to time about that, and I'll say, well, this is why we're doing it.
Yeah.
Just because nobody knows Shangri-La.
Yeah, yeah. And that phrase Shangri-La has been used so many other times in different contexts that would be very confusing.
Yeah, you're thinking you're going to Asia and visiting the Shangri-La and Lost Horizon.